Subscribe to my channel for interesting stories.
Story 1. I wasn't catfished, but it was worse. You are not ready for this story. I am happily in a relationship now, but when I say the red flags were flagging, I was 18, and I had met a man on Plenty of Fish. That was my first mistake, and had started catching feelings fast. We would chat every day. He was the first to mention marriage, starting a family, the whole 9 yards, so I fell very quickly too. He had told me he had a child early on, and after a few months he was comfortable bringing her around my family and me. When the relationship became a more serious child, the red flags started rolling in. 1. He worked a seasonal job and had asked for $400 to buy equipment when the season started up. I work hard for my money, and when I love someone, I will always do my best to help, but something felt off, so I gave him $200. 2. In the 6 months of being in a relationship, I never went to his house because of his previous baby mama drama. He would come over at 2 a.m. after work to spend the night and leave at 7 a.m. for work again. 3. One day I am scrolling on my WhatsApp and he has a picture with 3 children. I only know of one. And he proceeds to tell me that he actually has 5 kids with 4 different baby mamas and he pays child support, so don't worry. Did I leave? No. 4. My birthday rolled around, and he not only promised me a gift he never gave me, but stood me up at my birthday party. 5. He comes to me with this story that in Canada, if you don't pay child support, it comes out of your wages. If you don't have enough, you can be taken to court. So he needs a lawyer, because the baby mamas are trifling. Being the loyal girlfriend that I am, I go on Facebook and ask community groups if anyone is taking pro bono cases. Not only did I find one, but this loser did not even connect with them. Which leads to the final straw. I got a text from an unsaved number who was his foster brother. Sir, you never said you were adopted. Who texted me to say that he was in jail for not paying child support. He is so sorry, and that he still loves me, and to wait for him. I blocked them both and moved the hell on. When would you have walked away? Remember, I was young and in love. If you met a Toronto man, you would know anyone who mentioned marriage was a keeper. These men are for the streets. Story 2. Advice on breaking out of the restaurant cycle? I've been a manager at current job, a local small business, for over 8 years, and before that I worked in coffee shops, other restaurants. I'm in my 30s now with a family, and the late nights, lack of a life outside of work are just making me feel miserable. So I've decided it's time for me to look for a job elsewhere. I know all jobs have their own sets of downfalls, but I just want to be in a place that I can work normal hours, 9 a, 5 p, or close to it. I'm sending out a bunch of applications on Indeed for positions that I have experience in from my current job, such as HR, payroll, customer service manager, etc. But so far all I'm getting back is rejection emails. I'm curious, how hard is it to get an office job when you only have hospitality experience and no college degree? Am I going to have to start at entry level to just get my foot in the door? This is definitely a huge pay cut, so that does have me a bit worried. Story 3. Should I tell my new boss about my diagnosis? Hi everyone. I got some test results back this week regarding back pain I've been experiencing. I was expecting to hear that I have a slipped disc, but they found a lesion on my spine. It's probably benign, but I need to get a bunch of tests done in the next few months to be sure. The issue is, I was just promoted temporarily into a management position. I get along very well with my immediate manager, and I know she trusts my work ethic, and if I told her I need time off for medical reasons, she'd believe me. Some other important factors are, it's a government job and we're unionized. Yesterday she asked if I'd like to extend my contact. I want to explain my situation, that I will probably need to take off work at random times over the next couple of months. But should I tell her what's going on, or be vague? Sorry for the silly question. This is my first management position, and I really want to make a good impression. Thank you. Story 4. I have an inconsiderate neighbor with 7 cars who takes up almost the entire road in my village. For the last few years, my family and I have had a neighbor who has a love for vintage cars, evidently. They don't really seem to move or get worked on, and they take up a good 3/4 of the road parking space along the road I live on. We live on a small road, about 50 m. My family and I have laughed and joked about this situation for many years, and he also seems to try and take up more space than is needed. As far as when my sister was doing a van conversion, he always seemed to move the car he used the most closer and closer to my sister's van. I guess the reason I'm writing this is because he's just pulled up in his Land Rover, towing another vehicle we have never seen before, also a vintage restoration project. And we have all burst out in laughter, wondering what on earth he's going to do with these cars. Additionally, it makes it challenging for anyone to question him about this, as he is, unfortunately, in a battle with cancer, and quite easily remarks how he is dying. He also isn't very nice. I would say the typical grumpy, older Englishman. So yeah, there's one for you. I wonder if anyone else has experienced a situation as amusing but also quite annoying as this one. Story 5. I can't forget this colleague. Hello everyone. I would like to confess about a story that has occupied my thoughts for several months. I would just like honest opinions, even if I know that deep down I couldn't do anything to change the situation. I need to confide. Last summer, I dated a colleague of mine. We flirted at work very briefly, and then he left his job spontaneously due to a problem with management. However, he continued to send me a few messages, but we didn't see each other again until 2 months ago. I saw him again one night after my shift, and we slept together. During this intimate moment, he had difficulty getting hard, something I completely understand because it happens to everyone. Despite this, the night did not go badly. Since that night, we have exchanged a few trivial messages, but nothing special. He no longer shows any interest in me, even though it wasn't at all a strong and passionate relationship. I'm a little sad that he won't be part of my life, because it's the first time in my life that I have a real crush on a man. I like him physically, and I was hoping to start a relationship with him. I admit having stalked him on Instagram, and I noticed with surprise that many transsexual women's accounts follow his account. My intuition tells me that these are women he meets on dating apps because they come from cities he has visited. I would like to point out that I'm not judging anyone, it's just an observation. At first I told myself that it might be Instagram accounts that follow his account randomly, but when there are around 10, I can no longer be disillusioned. Besides that, I also have the impression that he still thinks about his ex-cis woman, who he was with for 3 to 4 years. If I had to give a quick description of this man, he is someone who is objectively physically handsome, who is confident in himself, and I would say that he still has a reputation to flirt a lot. I didn't have the opportunity to talk much with him, but he didn't hesitate to share his sexual exploits with me. I don't know if in the end, this doesn't hide a lack of self-confidence, because I'm very wary of men who like to reveal too much about their intimate life. At work, he was always attentive to me. I know he liked me because he was always the one complimenting me, sending me messages to see each other. He always made the first move, like during that much-vaunted night when he invited me to his home. Despite the fact that he is in his 30s, I have the impression that he is not looking for anything serious in terms of romantic relationships, as if he had a mental block. I don't know if it's because he still thinks about his ex, or if it's a deeper reason. You are not in his head, and I know that each human has its own desires, a different sexual orientation, sexuality, but I would like to know your opinion. Do you think his loss of interest in me is because he only seems attracted to trans women? It breaks my heart. But I know that in life, we cannot force people to love us, and drives cannot be explained. I'm just sad because I have the impression that he wanted to try something with me, but deep inside, he can't lie to his drives. And I tell myself maybe he had trouble getting hard for this reason. A trans woman is a woman. He is attracted to women, but I'm just wondering if, since recently, he might be attracted exclusively to trans women. I'm lost and a little disappointed. He intrigues me so much, and I can't forget this brief story, which hasn't really started. It obsesses my mind. Sorry for my English. I apologize for the long paragraph, and thank you to those who have read. Don't hesitate to give me your opinions, advices, or share your similar stories. Story 6. Am I the asshole for wanting my grandma out of my life? Hey, I've been thinking for a long time whether I should share my story and ask for your opinion, and I've decided to do it now. When I was 2 years old, my biological mother had a serious motorcycle accident and suffered severe brain injuries. She went directly into hospice care and was in a coma. I don't know if you've ever seen someone in a coma, but she looked very different afterward, and as a child, I found her scary. Well, after my mother's accident, I initially stayed with my grandparents, who had already lost their first son and were deeply affected by my mother's accident. My grandparents were unable to care for me, hoping that my mother would magically recover if she saw me, her child. So they repeatedly took me to the hospice. I don't remember it anymore, but whenever I see a picture of my biological mother, I get terrible fear that I can't explain to myself. Anyway, my grandparents eventually realized that they couldn't take care of me and handed me over to my father, who also couldn't take care of me. So I was passed on to my aunt, I was about 3 at the time, who already had a biological daughter and neglected me severely. Eventually, the authorities found out about this and took me out of the family and placed me in foster care. However, because I was traumatized and screamed in the new families, I was quickly passed through about 10 foster families who all didn't want me until I finally ended up with my parents, who went through hell with me. I had nightmares every night about my mother, wet the bed, and couldn't trust anyone. Now, over 20 years later, everyone notices that I'm different. Due to the trauma in my childhood, I have extreme difficulty trusting people. I have almost no friends, and I am bullied heavily in school because I'm just different. That's my story. My biological mother died 5 years after her accident in hospice, and my grandfather died in 2013, which means my grandmother is the only one left. I've always tried to visit her once a month, but during these visits, she always has pictures of my mother in the kitchen from when she was in a coma, and I'm just afraid. Also, during these visits, my grandmother never asks how I'm doing. She just cries and talks about how she's lost everyone and how terrible her life has been, and she brings up all the old stories from my childhood that I just want to forget. Now, my question is, am I the asshole if I cut off contact with her? Now that she's old, she says I have to visit her because I'm all she has left. But when I was a helpless little child and she was all I had left, she used me and traumatized me for life. So am I the asshole? Story 7. Peer pressure into drinking. So I'm a college student, M19 in the UK, and I'm not a very talkative person, but I'll still be able to have a decent conversation despite the fact that I can be more introverted from time to time. Sometimes me and my friends like to go to a pub after college to chill, eat, drink, etc. I was only going because I was hungry and I wanted to see some people, but my friends mostly went because they felt like having a few pints as we talked. I knew even before going, they would ask me if I was going to get a drink, as I've been asked this way before into buying one, and I'm not afraid of having one, I just prefer not to, because I believe you don't necessarily need a beer, a cider, vodka, whatever it is to engage better in a conversation. As my friend tells me, I need one to wind down easier, even though I already felt relaxed as it is. Since I'm pretty used to others being quick to judge in situations like this, I've just learned to not give a shit anymore. And I wasn't reluctant on saying that I won't be getting myself anything. That is, until they did something a little unexpected. My friends were so pushy with it that they said they will buy something for me, which caught me off guard. I thought me saying I'm just going to have some food was enough, but they insisted they'd get me a drink. At this point, I'd already said no several times, but they'd kept going with it, and they actually bought me something. This shit was not cheap either, to make matters worse. I felt I had no choice but to at least have some of it, and I only drank half the glass. They got disappointed that I hadn't finished it, and even guilt-tripped me with this by saying how they went out of their way into buying this for me, even though I made it clear that I didn't want or need a drink from them, and already politely declined their offer. It really pisses me off and also upsets me how people peer pressure others this way and then act as if you're being ungrateful for continuing to refuse their offer. Don't get me wrong, I am appreciative of them doing this. It's a nice thing to do for someone, but it's so fucking normalized in this society to persuade people this way into doing these kind of things like this that in most people's eyes are acceptable, even if the other person would prefer not to, that it genuinely feels wrong to do so. If anything, we should normalize acceptance of not needing a pint or a shot or whatever else, but it will most likely never be that way. I've been having this situation on my mind for a while now. It makes me want to hang out with friends like them less than before. I shouldn't have to technically pay for a meetup because people are so blindly peer pressuring others into having a fat pint, which, by the way, is so stupidly expensive. It makes me want to go out to do this even less if it means I gotta waste my money on something I never really wanted in the first place. I don't see why it's so hard for people to take no for an answer these days.